So again, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's okay. Thank you, Omar.
I think so, yeah.
Thanks, dear Susan, period. I called Andrea and she connected me to Omar, who apparently fixed
She's on Zoom. On Zoom, but not on the community
Period.
channel. Not the TV channel. So it's not required, right? No. Bradley asked to put it on Zoom and the YouTube live, right? Not on the, okay, so we are not live streaming it to the community.
Oh boy, am I putting one on?
So this is on our YouTube channel, okay? Not on the community. No. TLG Connect channel. So it's recorded now. And
I don't.
can record it.
What's that up in the left?
You don't know that.
Ay, ay, ay. Oy, oy. Eating lunch. I'm eating.
Birthday lunch.
Oh, we tried it. We gave me that lead. He wants money. On his website, he says we brand ourselves because the majority of the fellows here are our service. Good time we lie. Well, be a Boy Scout. So 6 months of inactive
Well, it's too bad, but. And then I look for vision that. But get hurt of it from, say, like you don't get astronauts or naval officers or whatever, you know, they have to be proven policy. So you can't have a meeting just.
You can have a corporate young women.
So about how long do you need?
I can do it flexible, I think that's like 3 hours.
You want me to give you
I'm sure,
time to quit?
I'm sure. Like 10 minutes.
Actually, we have this room until 1:30. But typically, we need to stop around 11. But they have to come in here, take everything down because residents council meets at 2 He's not on the premises.
That really got me worried.
Nobody in the staff seats to know.
We were.
Right now, Brad is lost. Nobody knows.
The other problem is a lot of these places, there's a long way. You have to have a car. You're on half the drive. This is the only place where it goes. Drugstore, healthcare. Yeah. It's not as good as it is. It's a friend of
Well, while you're still eating, I'll just hurry things along a little bit. And really good morning. I'm happy to see that we have a new menu this this luncheon. It's give them a hand. Let's give the luncheon people a hand. I know Paul McRae decided to give us something different, and hopefully next month we'll have something entirely different. I won't try to keep it secret. I'll tell you a little bit about it. In fact, I want to talk about future meetings. And in November, I've asked Jacob, our speaker for today, to come back in November, because Jacob is a man of many faces. And he has another interesting topic, which I'm sure you'll want to hear. And I don't know, maybe he just give a little short spiel about what that might be, just to tip it off. But now in October, just a moment, hang on a minute. I have to disrobe for this. Okay. In October, we're going to have our second annual Oktoberfest and T-shirt contest. It was very successful prior to COVID, and we hope to do that again. And there should be beer, German beer, hopefully on that day. And I'm going to try to ask Paul to give us some Winnies and sauerkraut, possibly. I don't know. Anyway, on this T-shirt contest, you're going to have a real opportunity to show your guns. Okay. Except that one thing out, we're not going to have any wife beaters. Does anyone know what a wife beater is? Okay, a wife beater is that T-shirt that's just like straps. We don't want to have any of those, so those are out. Yeah, but for T-shirts, I suggest you might pull out either your oldest ones, your most ragged ones, the most exotic ones that you have, say the most colorful ones, the ones maybe that have the most original logo, and maybe the one that is the most artistic. And then we will probably look for one that's best overall. There'll be rewards in the different categories, and will be decided by at least a panel of one. Paul Barish has offered to judge the thing. So in order for everyone to participate, we would like to have you give a short, quick story about your T-shirt. So we'll have about 20 or 30 minutes for people to just get up and tell us what that T-shirt meant to them, if at all. And if you don't have a T-shirt, you better go out and buy one. Yeah. No, in December, we're looking at having a buy. In other words, not a meeting in December. December is full of all kinds of other festivities. So we're gonna hold off on the men's luncheon then, and we'll pick it up again in January. And if any of you have anyone that you might want to hear of, people that you are connected to in some way or another that the rest of us might want to hear their story, please let the men's luncheon committee know, and we'll try to get those people in and talk and have them talk to us all. Let's see. Oh, one thing is, I know the mayor of Gilroy. The mayor of, if we're interested in hearing from South County and the mayor of Gilroy is a lady, and she happens to be my tax accountant also. So if we're interested in what's going on in South County, I've already talked to him at one time a few months back. Her husband is a executive engineer in one of the Silicon Valley companies, and I tried to get him to come and talk, and she said no, he's not interested. She said, well, what about me? So she's on tap. So I think she would talk if we're interested to come and hear her. Okay. This is going to be recorded, and it's going to be put up on YouTube. And in Cubigo, in the activities on the activities cube, if you come down and search down through the activities cube, you'll finally come to a place where there's a title that says videos. And if you go down there and find those after a meeting with some delay until they put the YouTube up, there'll be a YouTube down there so you can hear this whole talk again. If you missed it, or if some of the ladies would hear the talk, they can also listen to that on YouTube. Okay, and the activities people is not here, but the activities people, especially Elizabeth, who has been very instrumental in she and Omar and Shah and have been the people that connect us up and make sure that everything is working in this room. And they also responsible for putting the activities up on Cubigo. Thank them for that. Well, without any more talking, I want to introduce our next speaker, who is Jacob Kuykendall. I have a hard time finding that. And on the advertisement, we said we called him a chief. I don't know that he's a chief, But I think he will, I'll let him tell us about his background and how he arose from a dusty Indian encampment. I don't know if they had tents there at the time or not, but he'll tell us all about that. And and so I'm really looking forward to that. Being an old Minnesota person myself, and there were Chippewa people in the counties where my ancestors came from. So I want to hear a little bit more about the Chippewas or the Ojibways, whatever they are. Okay, go ahead. Come on up, Jacob. Give him a hand, please.
Thank you. And the November talk I just found out that I was going to give is about the impact of the fur trade on the discovery of North America, which started in the mid 1600s. Most people think that America was discovered for religious reasons, and it really wasn't. So I have a pretty good history of that, and I've been giving talks to historical societies about it. Well, I spent the first 17 years of my life on the Chippewa Indian Reservation. This is where I was born. It's a Indian hospital that was started just 5 years before I was born. And before that, it was a regional school for the reservation. And there wasn't a hospital at the time, 1929. So the only place for people to be born was in their house. So it was either a log cabin or a wigwam. And my father was actually born in a logging camp. So it was not unusual. The reservation is the Coudray, which is in the center of the state. It came into being about the time of the Civil War. It's one of 11 reservations. Most of them are Chippewa, but there are others that are also in Wisconsin that moved from New York. How's that? Okay. Thank you. The reservation covered about 100 square miles. Right now, there are 7,000 members of the tribe, of which 2,300 live on the reservation. The rest are off reservation, but they're still tribal members. When the reservation was established in about 1850, this was the very first one, and one of my ancestors was actually responsible for helping establish it. After it was established, as you see, there's a lot of water. Decided that was a good place to make a reservoir, so they flooded it in 1920, started generating electricity. But we didn't benefit from the electricity until after I left the country. So it was until 1947 that the reservation finally got electricity. This was my grandmother and grandfather. My grandmother was a half Chippewa, and my grandfather was Dutch. His ancestors, he was a 10th generation Dutch. He came in 1642, and over 10 generations finally ended up in Wisconsin. This is an ancestor of my grandmother. He was French, and he came participating in the fur trade. This is in the area of North Dakota, about 1890. My Dutch grandfather was responsible for building the railroad onto the reservation. And when he got finished building the railroad, he decided that he liked the place. So he found this lady that had 80 acres of land and 4 strapping boys. So he decided to change his lifestyle and establish a farm there. So he abandoned or he divorced his first wife and started living on a reservation. This is the farm that he built about 1910. It had my family had nine kids, and my grandfather and grandmother on both sides lived in the place along with the 9 kids, and we had uncles and aunts. And at times there were as many as 17 people living in this small farm. It was pretty much self-sufficient. We raised all our own meat, and what we didn't raise, we shot a lot of deer and ducks. We had a herd of cows, about 15 to 20, and we didn't sell the milk. We separated it into cream and sold the cream, and that was the only source of revenue. But we only had to buy the basics like flour and sugar, and we were very self-sufficient. This is my father. He was 22 at the time. When I was born, he was 17 and my mother was 18. So I remember when my father was 21 years old. This is another ancestor. He came to, actually he lived with the Sioux tribe for a year, and then he lived with the Chippewas, so he learned the language of both the Sioux and the Chippewas. When they were negotiating the treaties. His wife, who was my ancestor, was full blood, and as her brother there, who was a medicine man. He specialized in social diseases, and he actually treated both Indians and the loggers that ended up having the need of his service. This is the ancestor that helped establish the reservation. He was English, and he married one of the daughters of one of the chiefs that's shown. So even though I might not be a chief, I had an ancestor that was a chief. His granddaughter, who was my grandmother, ended up going to Carlisle Indian School in Pennsylvania. She was there at the same time Jim Thorpe was there. She was there until she was 18 years old. They actually found records. They kept extensive records of each student that was there, and it's still on the database. So you can look up your ancestors and see how well they did. Said that she was a poor student and didn't work very hard, so she didn't win any awards. Before that, she went to Haskell in Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas, and she was there for 4 years. And before that, she was at the regional school that was the hospital that I was born in. So she ended up in school for over 12 years, and when she finished, she had the equivalent of a 6th grade education. So they weren't very academic. They were mostly brought these kids in to teach them English, and they were forbidden to speak their language. So they ended up learning English and very limited academic. The reservation didn't have electricity, so we also didn't have refrigeration. So the way we solve that is we cut ice in the middle of the winter with saws and haul them off with horses and keep the ice through the summer. We buried, put them in houses with sawdust, and actually we did it for other people, so we would sell the ice for a penny a pound. People didn't smoke too much, but they did chew tobacco. So tobacco was a big thing. My grandfather started off smoking pipe, but he was riding on a wagon with blasting powder under the seat, and he sprinkled some ashes in the blasting powder and blew off the wagon. So he quit smoking, and he impressed upon us that we wouldn't, none of the family would smoke. The snuff box was also used for when someone shot at a deer and missed him. His penalty was to push a snuff box that was connected to his nose with a hanger, and you'd have to push it across a frozen lake as punishment. We had this is a conch that was passed down through generations from the 1700s, and is passed from firstborn to firstborn. So I ended up with it, and so I guess if we're royalty, I'd be king right now. But we used it to call people in from the fields, or someone was lost, or now whenever there's a funeral, we blow the horn to help move on to the next world. Well, wild rice was a big crop, and it was a basic crop. Now you can buy it for a lot of money, but it was a basic food for the reservation. We also made our own maple syrup and maple sugar. And we never bought real sugar. We used maple sugar for the whole time. I had a pet bear that I bought from an old Indian that shot the mother, and so the 3 orphan cubs. So I paid $15 for the bear. He was small, and I had to feed him with a baby bottle when it first started, and we kept him for about 2.5 years, and he got to be taller than I was, so we turned him loose, and he went back out to the wild. The second picture there you can see is he was playing with our dog. Well, the dog was a fast friend, and I think they talked together, but they had a great time with each other. That's a picture when I was getting my Indian name, which is Grandfather Bear, Mishomis Makwa. I have the outfit, but Sue didn't want me to wear it here. The guy sitting next to me there is the medicine man. We grew up together, and there's a later picture that shows us in school. That's my sister-in-law, who was actually half German. I had a brother that went to Germany and married and had a daughter, and she's actually a member of the tribe. That's a sister and a cousin. We fished not with poles, but we used spears and lights. When I was there, we had steel beam lights that we would stick on the bottom end of a pole and stick on the water. It's very effective. That's the spear we use. And that's a 72-pound muskie that my grandfather speared. Right now, the world's record for muskie caught on hook and line is like 71 pounds. So this fish is bigger than the world's record. But we couldn't claim it because we speared it. That's my little brother with the fish. This is actually the construction that was prevalent on the reservation. That's what, I went to a one-room schoolhouse like a few of you did here. Yes. Oh, sorry. There were about 40 kids with one teacher. This is the 6th and 7th grade class, and the one guy with his hands in his pockets was the medicine man. I'm sitting right behind him. The school bus was a farm truck. My father drove the school bus, and when I was in the 7th grade, I suggested that I would drive the school bus instead of him. So I'd drive the bus at 12 years old, pick up all the kids on the way, and nobody objected, even though there were 10 or 12 kids that rode on the bus. I got my first ticket when I was 12 years old for driving without a license, but that didn't slow me down. The reservation now has a high school and actually a university, so it's come a long way since I was there. They're also building a $40 million health center, which has come a long way from that little place that I was born at. We had a very famous neighbor that lived just 3 miles away, Al Capone. Chicago was only a day's drive away, so he decided to build a house up there and on the reservation on a 1 square mile. This is a house. My grandfather actually provided all the rocks that went into this house that he had picked off his farm, and he knew Al Capone, and my uncles would go fishing with some of their guys and hunting. They used machine guns to shoot deer, which didn't make the game wardens very happy. I also had a very famous guy who invented the Rayovac battery and started Rayovac. He asked me to take him fishing when I was 7 or 8 years old, and I'd spend summers fishing with him, and he told me about batteries and electricity and got me interested, told me how to make a electric fence using a car battery and a magneto from a Model T Ford. So I decided then that I should pursue a career in electricity and electronics, and he's the guy that was responsible for it. After I graduated from high school, I spent 1 year in Chicago as a cook at White Castle. Joined the Air Force, spent 3 years in Germany. I was looking for a creative way to finance my college, so I bought a Austin Healey in Germany. Paid a down payment. I think I paid $2,100 for it. Brought it back and sold it after 2 years for $3,000, 31. So I made a lot of money on my first investment, and got me through first couple of years of school. Went to the University of Wisconsin in Madison. After 2 years, I ran out of money, so I looked for a job, and I got a job as a breakfast cook, leveraging my White Castle experience. This was a girls' dorm, graduate women's dorm, and for 1 year I did that. and the university owned the property at the time, and they decided that they were going to sell it and cash in on it. So they asked me if I would stay on as the custodian. So I lived in this place for 2.5 years. Went from a farmhouse with 17 people to a house with 17 rooms and 7 bathrooms. So, I've been trying to get back to that state of life ever since. This is where it was located, right next to the Capitol. It had a two-story boathouse, brick boathouse with it. So it was a very valuable property. I got married at that point, and we went to Boeing. My first job was with Boeing, developing test equipment for the Minuteman missile program. From there, I went to Beckman, spent 3 years in Berkeley, producing test equipment for hybrid computers. These computers covered a whole room, sold for $3 or $4 million, but had much less power than a cell phone. Decided to move on to international. I got a job with GT International, secured an MBA in marketing, and got a job. My territory was everything outside the United States, selling computer systems for controlling power grids and pipelines and things like that. Yes. Oh, I have a double E degree and an MBA in marketing from Loyola University of Chicago. Introduced power grids throughout South America, and went on to South Africa and sold the systems to the control the power grid for the entire country of South Africa, and also the airlines and railways. Joined Arthur D. Little, which is a think tank company, and helped build do the master planning for a city on the Red Sea called Yanbu. This was a city the size of Madison, Wisconsin, or Salt Lake City, and it was built in the desert. Started from nothing and ended up within 20 years, 130,000 population. Finished that and went to Abu Dhabi, where they were burning off all of their waste gas, and decided to capture it. The amount of gas they wasted was enough to provide the energy for half of England at a time. So they started capturing it and selling it, and did the master plan for that as well. This is what the city of Dubai looked like 20 years after that. Before that, it was just a sophisticated fishing village. So they got all the revenue from the gas production. Well, went on and started my own company, and the first project was Chicago Board of Trade. They built a new trading floor and a 23-story annex. Also started a company which was to provide data communications for the Bell companies, and interconnected all of the Bell companies. This was like a 4-year project. Living in Massachusetts at the time, and they had toll booths. So decided I didn't want to have toll booths, so I came up with a system to get rid of toll booths. This is an electronic system running on fiber that has since been copied and is used throughout the United States and throughout the world. In fact, when you go on the fast track, it's using this system here on a per lane basis. was an advisor to NATO to develop a system called the Virtual Silk Highway. And it provided service for satellite-based service for 10 countries in Central and Eastern Asia, that region. I finished off my working career doing research with funding from National Science Foundation. It turns out there was only one company one Native American company that got funding from National Science Foundation in the 45-year history of National Science Foundation. And that's my company, Zenla. I'm open for questions. We have a little bit of time, I think. Sure. We had kerosene lanterns, and for when we would go in the barn, we had these lanterns that looked like what the railroad used, so that they wouldn't catch the hay afire. Yes.
Kind of skipped from the gentleman showing you how batteries work to having enough knowledge to conquer the world. How did you get from point A to point B? So once you started getting into the academic field, went was proceeded in normal fashion, but you were the one.
Was interested. We didn't have electricity, as I said, but I decided television had just been introduced, so I did a term paper on how TV sets worked when I was in freshman in high school. So that got me on the path of getting more educated on what it is, and ultimately got a double E. When I was in the Air Force, I was in communications and actually learned Morse code, and I could do 35 words a minute, and how to fix radios. So it was a planned trajectory to become an electrical engineer. Yes. You had a chisel. So the very first one that got a chisel, and then you had a way to saw it. And when after it got it 4 or 5 cakes sawed, you could just chisel it, and it would pop up, so that you could get a hold of the cake and slide it up a little ramp onto the sled. Like 2 feet thick. It got cold there.
How did you feel as a kid? You had a lot of freedom.
Total freedom. We came from a family of 9, and my parents were of the opinion that just let you grow up the way you want to grow up. So when we had 5 boys, and whenever we would get into a fisticuff, we had 16-ounce boxing gloves, and we just work it out ourselves. So when we went to school, grade school, I was very small. I started, so I got into a fight on the very first day I got into grade school. And then when I went I actually quit grade school at the end of the 7th grade, because I didn't think I was learning enough, and hopped on the bus and went to high school. So one of the big grade school kids in town decided to pick on this little kid, and little high school kid. And so we had a battle, and I beat the heck out of him, and I established my posture. How are we doing on time? Okay. Any more? Yes.
Racial issues you had to deal with, being Dutch on one side and Indian on another?
It wasn't as much as Dutch, but there was significant racial issues with particularly when I went to high school. most of the most of the kids that went to this county school were like 3/4 were not Indian and 1/4 was Indian. And we were always at odds with Indians versus non-Indians.
In your tribe, in this tribal area, you were in a distinct tribal area, is that right? Is that in a reservation?
Yeah, it was a reservation. It had boundaries, and but as time went on, when the natives first moved on, they moved into the places that were not on lakes, and as time went on, the non-natives came and they bought property on lakes and drove the prices up. And right now, vacation home and is almost worth as much as a vacation home here in California. You'd end up paying $1 million for a 100-foot lot with a significant house on it. But natives don't live there. It's only the tourists that live there. Yes. Well, I had a plan. I worked for GD International for 10 years, and then Arthur D. Little for 5 years, and then I left and worked for myself. So I wasn't working. I was working as a consultant or an advisor on all those companies. So when I did the project in Saudi Arabia, it was as a part of a Arthur D. Little contract, and the same is true of Abu Dhabi. Yes. Yeah, they did have their own police force. When I was there, it was only 2 or 3 people, but now they have a significant police force and squad cars, and also the county has jurisdiction over the roads. Yeah, that's true. That we would also, if we killed someone, we would go to the county jail. No, it was the county, the state county, or the. No, I think it's very useful, but it needs to have restrictions on it, so that you don't accept everything that it says, because it's everything that comes out of it isn't true. Yes. Yes, in fact, my tribe does own a casino, and as a result, I own 1/7,000th of a casino. And the money is used for good purposes. They use that to build the universities and the schools and support. That they're actually the largest employer of the county. So they do generate. The casinos in areas that are near population centers do very well, but when you get them out in North Dakota or away from a population center, they tend not to be very successful. Yes. That's right. They do get a lot of federal funding, federal support from for the schools, but they are separate from the state and county schools. Yeah.
The tribal area that you grew up in. Now, there are other tribal areas of Chippewas in Wisconsin. What kind of interaction do they have with each other?
They do tend to cooperate. They have associations that manage the wildlife and so they do have councils that interact regularly. Yes. Yes.
You referred, I believe, to a $40 million medical center. That money from the gambling.
Some of it, the way they financed that is they came up with like $7 million out of the funds that the tribe had, and then they financed the rest of it, and hopefully we'll get reimbursed. Well, when the reservations were created, part of the deal was that the U.S. government would provide health service to Indians in exchange for all that land that they got. That's been not very well done, but the obligation still exists. So I could go to an Indian clinic on any place that there is one and get health service if I chose to. Yes. Well, they didn't really want to be reservations to start with. They owned the whole country, and as they kept getting pushed into further and further west, the only obligation or the only recourse was to allow having reservations so that they could go live. But it wasn't their idea. It was the U.S. Congress and the federal government. In 1850. Yes. It varies from reservation to reservation. On my reservation, you need to have 1/8 Indian heritage in order to be a member of the tribe. I'm a quarter. I have a card, so I'm a card-carrying Chippewa Indian.
Well, if there, yeah, okay. I didn't have to ask. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jacob. And I'm quite interested in the Chippewas myself because some of that has to do with ancestors that I had in the Minnesota area, and I know I talked to you about this before. And thank you again, Jacob. It was a very welcome talk. Thank you all. Are there any other things that people would like to talk about or have questions about or that I could answer about men's luncheon? Okay, well, hearing none, the meeting is adjourned for today. Thank you for coming. Bill.